I think money has the ability to impact the dynamics in a marriage, whether you earn more or less.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Learn with RG. And today is one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about money and relationships. Radhika, tricky one, touchy subject. Not too many couples I know talk openly about money.
Hmm.
Um, is that what you face as well in your
I
interaction with
don't
people?
understand why it should be touchy. It's touchy. I don't understand why it should be touchy. I mean, if you go back even before couples, like in the house, over the dining table also, except in few business families, I don't think money is very dinner table conversation.
Not at all.
So why should we blame? There's almost a strange stigma in talking about money, that either it's very secretive, that I have to, if I have a certain amount of wealth, I want to hide it from everyone.
Why is that?
I don't. I find it bizarre. Maybe perhaps because wealth is associated with so many other things culturally, power, status, etc. That you it triggers so many emotions. I mean, we've talked about this. Perhaps you want to hide it. And the other thing is, if you want to, God forbid, you want to have a difficult conversation about money, like two brothers or two siblings with their parents, that how are you going to divide something, that is even more tricky, because it almost feels that when you're talking about money, you're going to offend. So it's a space non grata in
Hmm.
some
I think
way.
so. Yeah.
It's and I don't understand why, because at least my belief is that you should always address the elephant in the room, because by you not talking about it, the elephant is not going away.
Yeah.
He or she is still there. So you have to start to talk, and a lot of problems come, I think, from not talking. But it is certainly a space non grata. I have seen it so many times in people I know, that they just delay or circumvent or avoid the conversation, but they don't want to have that straight conversation. I mean, so many times in households, the woman will have no idea of the household net worth.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a very scary situation.
A lot of times women don't even know how many bank accounts their husband has,
Yeah.
or they don't know how much money their husband invests a lot of times, right? So between a man and a woman, that dynamics with respect to money, it gets tricky sometimes, I think.
In fact, it's so funny that, and I have spoken to women pan India, rich, what you call South Mumbai, South Delhi, Metro. I've spoken to women in other side of the income bracket, and the issues are common. So the most common issue is, how do we have the conversation about money? I'm scared to talk to my husband about money. And sometimes it's not to blame men. I want to talk to my wife about money, but she doesn't want to have that. So that conversation is not had. And you said they don't know bank accounts and all. The scarier thing is, sometimes liabilities are in the woman's name.
Yeah.
So sometimes a family would have taken debt, and one of the guarantors is the woman. And she has no idea what liabilities she's exposed to in life, because usko to pata hi nahi hai. Forget knowing the savings and investments. Sometimes women don't even know the income of the household.
Correct.
What are the income? What are the expenses? How do they think? And वो मांग मांग के घर चलाती हैं, but they don't know. And
Correct.
it is bizarre.
I think it stems from childhood yet again,
Yeah.
right? Because see, like if talking from my personal experience, I never discussed the finances with my parents.
Yeah.
I never knew how much they were making. I never knew how much they were spending.
Hmm.
So when I got married, it was so gradual that I never, for the first few years of my marriage,
Hmm.
never discussed finances with my husband.
Yeah.
But it's only over time that I realized that this is so important,
Hmm.
because eventually there are so many financial decisions that you have to take together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there is so much, you start getting disgruntled about many things. You start feeling disassociated from many things,
Thanks.
especially when there is a kind of a joint family involved. So, what do you think? How do you think the dynamics can improve in a couple?
Hmm.
And what are the kind of money conversations that one should have in a relationship?
So I was actually lucky that my parents never hid this conversation about money from us. So we had some idea of how much money our father was making, how much money my mother was making. In fact, quite happily they used to discuss their salaries at home. I don't think we ever asked them आपके savings कितने हैं, investments कितने हैं. But when I had to apply to college abroad, they quite candidly told me that this is the fee, this is what we can afford, this is what we can not afford. It's the first time we had kind of a deeper conversation about money, a little tricky one. And I feel because they were honest with me, I didn't have any grudges. I said, this is their situation, this is their income, this is the expenses of a US education, this is the gap, and I have to bridge it, and I can't grudge them for it, right? So I think it's a great example of just how laying the data out prevents a lot of agony. Otherwise, sometimes, I mean, we can talk couples, sometimes with kids, there's always a lot of anxiety against their parents that my parents are not giving me this.
Yeah.
You know, they may have it, but they're not giving it to me. They're denying it to me.
Correct.
And once you put the information out there, because no parent actually wants to deny something reasonable to their child. So I think putting it out there helps. With couples, Sonia, I don't know if this is a popular point of view, but my view is, again, the couple should have a conversation before getting married about money values, right? I think most couples who get married discuss things like, do you want to have kids, right? Because there are some couples who don't want to have kids, there's some couples who want one. I mean,
Did you have the conversation about money before getting married?
yes, we did. We did. We actually had it when we were dating. And
So how did it go? What did you guys talk about?
actually, our conversation was more about the lives we would want to build, because I think as an ambitious woman, it is also very important to have a partner who will support that ambition. And so that is where the conversation started. Because if you're going to plan that phase of life, then you've got to be aligned on things like, will I work after marriage? Will I work after having a kid? How important is my career versus your career? These are, in my view, very important conversations.
But did you have conversations about who's going to spend how much on the house bill or on home expenses? I mean, because these are conversations that should be had,
Yeah.
but frankly they make you uncomfortable.
See, there's no right answer because different couples have different circumstances. Like, there are couples where both are double income couples and they have very similar incomes. There are couples where one partner is earning and the other partner is not earning. There are couples where I say one partner is earning and the other has a supporting income. And the answers to all these things are going to be very different. If one partner is not earning, it is clear that one partner is taking care of. But I think, regardless of whether one partner is earning, who's earning, there has to be a lot of respect in that conversation, and that conversation needs to be had. And there can't be a right answer. But I always tell women who are not earning that just because you're not earning doesn't mean you have a right not to know. Because finally, goals are for the household.
Yeah.
Right? Now, since we were both a working couple, we were very clear that we were going to split things for the family. But our investments were going to be independent. So that was the kind of conversation me and my husband had. But our property purchase was going to be joint. So on different things, you start having these conversations about what is joint, what is this. But you have the conversation. And I think 6-7 years ago, he instituted this thing where he's like, let's just make a money vision statement for us as a family. And we'll just write down what we want and what we won't do. And it goes down to like, these are the AMCs we don't like also. So it has
Okay.
lots of...
Very detailed vision
very
statement.
detailed. These are the categories of funds we will not do. And we keep reviewing the vision statement and we do these quarterly reviews. And sometimes when I get lazy to look at it, my husband will be like, Radhika, you need to sit and look at this. So we've actually, I think, made a little bit of a science around it. And that keeps things a lot more comfortable.
As you earn more money,
Yeah.
do the dynamics in a marriage change?
I think money has the ability to impact the dynamics in a marriage, whether you earn more or less. because finally money can be the source of a lot of behavior, right? Too much money can create problems of ego.
Mm.
Suddenly, one partner is extremely financially successful. It can go to your head. You start feeling a sense of superiority. We've seen enough Hindi movie examples of those narratives. uh, if the family is going through a tough financial period, there can be a lot of blame game on one of the partner, particularly in business families. There can be a lot of having to, I mean, I have worked on Wall Street when '08 happened, right?
Mm.
And those are financially very tricky times, and you start having to cut back on lifestyle. And I think that can be very tricky in a marriage. But yeah, I think money and many, many different things can cause little pricks in a marriage.
Has your success impacted your marriage either positively or negatively?
I think for us, it has been more neutral, Sonia, because for the large part, till very recently, Nalin and I have worked together.
Okay. That's
And
helped.
that's there are pros and cons of
Of
that
course.
situation, but it has been easy. So when
How
you
was it
have
like working with your husband? I don't know because we are in two very different industries. But for you, since you guys are in the same industry,
same firm is hard, same industry is, I think, a very good thing. My honest assessment of this is same firm, being entrepreneurs together. I know some people swear by it, but it's pretty tough because there is no work life separation. I mean, you just go home and talk
all the
the same.
fights extend into the household.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to another friend who's going through something like this, and he was telling me, he's like, it's a business family, and he's saying that, it's okay in the office because that fight remains professional, but if the fight carries over home, the fight becomes personal. So I think it's very complicated. Same industry, but it's not same office is actually quite nice. Because there is, I feel like if the markets are going through 2008 syndrome, I don't have to explain to my husband why I'm stressed or why I'm working longer. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. I know couples who are both in the film industry or doctors. You just have a little more empathy towards the
Yeah.
other,
The struggles
the
that the
the
other one is
struggles
going
of the other person. So the downside, people say, is that you don't have something different to talk about, but that I think you figure out. You have separate
you have
interests, you
enough,
listen.
especially when you have a child, there's
Yeah,
enough and more to talk
there's
about.
enough and more to talk about. Anyway, the kid consumes more
Yeah.
time. But same industry is okay. Same firm is a lot more tricky, I would say. I mean, I don't know. You and your husband work in completely different industries.
Completely different industries, and I think it works very well for us
Yeah.
because yes, there's something or the other entertaining in his industry and in
Uh,
mine at different periods of
Actually,
time.
both your industries are very entertaining, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you both work in high drama industries. You can debate
Yeah.
which one has more drama on that given day.
I think news business has more drama
Yeah,
because it's so
yeah,
challenging every single day.
yeah. News is drama.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of drama. But the most common question I get asked by a lot of couples and a lot of women is, should we have joint bank accounts
Oh God.
or separate bank accounts? And I know it's different for different couples, but for us, separate bank accounts work
Yeah.
because we have separate spending habits, we have separate money trauma, and we deal with it separately. So for things which are joint expenses, whether it's like travel or our child's education, then of course things come together. But for everything else, it's separate. So I want to know from you what works for you
By the way,
guys.
this is a really controversial topic. I think people have so many different opinions. I mean, we are very similar. We have separate accounts for ourselves, and we have a common bank account for family, children, all that kind of expenses. And it's somewhere, as you said, it's about separate expenses sometimes. And then you never worry, like, I'm going to go buy myself some like mad diamond necklace, which I'm not. But, it doesn't bother the other person,
Yeah.
right? So
What he
that's
doesn't know won't hurt him.
what he doesn't. No, I mean, I'll tell him I bought it from my own money, but it's not from his kitty. So hopefully it should not hurt him. He'll just be happy that I bought it from my own money. I also think people have, as you grow older, different responsibilities towards their family, everything else, right?
Yeah.
So all of that starts to become easier. So for us, that works. We have separate investments also, but we like to discuss our investing philosophy
Mm.
with each other. So, I mean, fundamentally, I think with me and my husband, our money values are very similar. And
Mm.
I actually think in a marriage, money values matching is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
They're not completely similar. I think he spends more money than I do, and he's easier with that. But he's also more detailed. But I think some basic alignment of money values, if there is such a thing, actually works quite well.
A lot of men don't put so much thought into spending money.
Yeah,
When they want
actually,
to
that
go and shop, they just go in and out, buy it, finish, it's over.
it drives me crazy.
Yeah, for women, they're like thinking and thinking and thinking and
Like,
pondering, going back home, sleeping over it. And I think
like
it's a very.
they'll go to the mall. First, they don't like to go shopping. They'll go to the mall once a year, buy 6 shoes or shirts or whatever
And
that,
done.
and they don't check if it's on sale or not.
Yeah.
And like, this is me, and it starts bothering me, and I'm like, but I'm gonna go and check whether it's on sale or whether there's a bargain, or check 5 stores. But I think for
That's just your money trauma. You know that,
It's-
right?
it's partly my money trauma, but it's a woman thing too, right?
It is,
Like,
it is.
women enjoy the process of window shopping, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think men do. So I think separating that for family reasons, for expense reasons, but having some commonality on investments and transparency at least on the family's kitty is very
Mm,
important.
mm.
So I don't think we like to hide each other's money situation from
Yeah.
each other. So
No, I think that's a very important topic, transparency and even transferring of assets, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of us build assets,
Huh.
like whether it's you, your husband, your in laws, but when it comes to creating a succession plan
Oh God, what
or
the
putting a will together,
Huh.
so many emotions suddenly come in
Huh.
the play.
Yeah.
So have you faced it as well?
Oh God, I've written PNs about this on social because I've seen so many stories in the home. Firstly, every lawyer recommends that you write a will.
Will.
Nobody wants to write a will. I have had so many conversations. Write a will, write a will, write a will. And
Why do people not want to write a will? What is
Because
it that stops them?
in your lifetime, you are making a decision to divide what you have between 2 people or 3 people or 4 people. When you're making that decision, you're sort of exposing, oh, I like you more, I give you this. And there's this fear of the unknown, of having that elephant in the room conversation. And the reason I'm becoming more and more obsessed with wills now is after the person goes, when you don't have a will, Sonia, it becomes so difficult. I mean, I've dealt with cases in my family, and look, I'm a reasonably well known person in financial services, but without wills and paperwork done, even for me to help someone out and get stuff done is difficult. And it is super difficult. So I can't begin to imagine what a common person goes through and just get the documentation done.
So you're saying if there's no will,
Yeah.
then even if you are a nominee, the money doesn't come to you.
So sometimes it depends on the asset, right? In mutual funds, for instance, if you have a nomination, you are good.
Mm.
But in things like property, for instance, it's not always so obvious. So with some asset classes that are more regulated, it is much easier. But with some things, it is not as easy. For
Correct.
instance, the person who's left behind, if a husband is passed away and the wife is left behind, you'll want to close the husband's bank accounts. And going through a situation like this, how do you do succession and closure of those bank accounts without that?
Mm.
Or then you'll need to, I remember in this case we don't have a will, so we are having to produce legal heir certificates and all kinds of this stuff.
Wow.
And then you have to go to the court and get them. And remember, when you have loss in the family, you are in a very different mental frame.
This is the
You are-
last thing that you want to think
you are
about.
aggrieved, it's an emergency, you're stressed. And the other problem is, money that you want to be readily available is not available.
Correct.
And it just starts agitating you.
So that's why these uncomfortable conversations need to be had about succession planning and making a
And
will.
have them when everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
Just have them. And even, I would even go so far as to say, run like a hygiene check on your investments, or get your advisor or someone to run a check on your investment saying, oh, are all my nominations okay? Because, we don't realize in life, we'll go around, we'll keep creating bank accounts, we'll do one random investment, we'll buy one small 10 lakh property there. All of this is in your control. But when you are gone, it is headache for someone who doesn't understand.
Investments are still okay. I am most worried about the debt because a lot of people take on loans, they take on debt, and
Credit
sometimes
cards.
credit card bills. Then the interest on the credit card piles up
Yeah.
to like lakhs, and then suddenly you're
Sometimes people don't even know the credit cards that they have.
yeah.
So very few people have an Excel that documents even the credit cards that they have or the home loans that they have that someone has to pay.
Mm.
Anyway, I think as we are evolving, we're perhaps taking on more leverage than we should.
Mm.
But I get nervous. Sometimes I've had a case in the family where someone left a credit card behind. The person didn't look at it, and there was a huge fraud on the credit card, like very very large fraud, and then we had to go fight the bank.
Wow. Yeah, even I had a situation in my family where somebody passed away, and unfortunately, and then we realized that that person has had a credit card interest payment for 12 years. It was
12
piling up,
years.
piling up,
I don't even want to know what the amount was.
and it went into lakhs, and then that had to unfortunately be paid by the wife of the person who passed away. So it was yeah. I mean, it's
12
sad. 12
years.
years, and they realized after 12 years because the the communication was coming to a separate email address which no one was checking and all of that.
And
So
we live, I mean, this is a good point. We live in an era of emails, and everything needs a password and everything needs an OTP as it should,
mm,
right? But you can't break into these things at all, right? There's so much security, and as I said, for all good reason. So it is better this is documented and all the check boxes are done, so that if there is an event, it can be done easily.
correct.
Because you'll think वो मेरे पास पता होगा, I'll figure out, मुझे वो आपसे होगा ही नहीं.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so coming back to couple finances,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what we want to talk about. For a lot of young people who are
Yeah.
perhaps looking for their life partner, what are the money conversations that they need to have? What are the 2 or 3 things that are top of mind? You said one of them is you all need to have, your money goals need to be aligned,
Yeah.
right? What else?
So I think start with money values. How do you think about spending? How do you think about saving, right? Because spending and saving is part of being a couple. So are you someone who wants to own assets in the long term? Because a lot of young couples now don't believe in owning
Yeah.
houses, cars. Or are you someone who eventually has a thing of, I want to buy a house, I want to have a family? So you should kind of understand your money values first and what you want to achieve with money as a couple. The second thing I think is to have a conversation around money ownership. I mean, the stuff we talked about. It's a big deal in some families for the woman to have her own bank account, especially when you're living with a joint family. So I think these things, and bank accounts create a strange sense of control. So a lot of women will feel agitated if you don't let them have a single bank account. And a lot of families will find it very offensive if you say, oh, I want a separate bank account. I think that conversation, honestly, should be had.
So whether you're an earning member of the family or not, you need to have your own bank
Yeah,
account.
it doesn't. No, I mean, you should have a I don't want to be judgmental and say you should have one or not, but I'm saying you should have a conversation on whether, if you want to have your own bank account, you should make that clear.
Mm.
That is what I'm saying. I don't want to judge whether joint is right, this is right, that is right. But I'm saying be clear. If a single bank account is important to you and not having it is going to create mental stress, please have that conversation before, the other good conversations I think that are important to have.
But
And
in this bank account thing, so we are, of course, we women like you and me have certain privileges, right? We
Yeah,
are
yeah.
working.
Mm,
We are we've reached a certain place in our career. There are a lot of women who, either by choice or by compulsion, are homemakers.
yeah,
And they don't earn. They are not the earning member of the
Yeah.
family. They're looking after the house and the kids.
yeah.
What do they do? What are the kind of conversations that they need to have to get a larger seat at the table?
I think there the conversation is not about joint bank account, all of that. I mean that's there the conversation is about asking for transparency. And even I believe whether you are a homemaker, man or woman, both parties need to have transparency because finally the homemaker is also running the home. The homemaker probably has given up her career to support the primary earning member, right? So the homemaker is entitled to financial transparency. We haven't talked about divorce, but this stuff is quite common, right?
Mm.
It's increasingly common. So a conversation on how you will be taken care of in the event that you're giving up your career if something untoward were to happen. And India doesn't have the divorce laws that some other Western countries have. So I think you have to think of future consequences that could affect you meaningfully and have a conversation. I've seen again in the family a case where someone became homemaker, gave up a career, brought up the kids, and then there was a very unpleasant divorce and she was left with no assets.
I do want to talk about divorce actually, because divorce and money is a topic that not too many people focus on, right?
Yeah,
When you are going through a divorce, which has become very common nowadays,
which has
and which
become
is
very
fine. I mean,
common.
it's your
Yeah,
choice.
yeah,
But when you're going through a divorce, it's a very emotional time period of
yeah.
your life. At that point in time, you don't think too much about money.
Money.
You
Yeah,
don't think about dividing the assets. You don't think so much about how you're going to look after the
yeah.
children. So, what are the 3 or 4 things that you need to plan if you are going through something like a divorce?
And I think it is difficult on both partners, right?
Mm.
Firstly, it's emotionally difficult in India. While it's become common, there's still a lot of noise around these things. And for the primary earning member, there's often a feeling of loss of wealth to the other partner. Uh, for the other partner, there's a feeling of the primary breadwinner is gone. Even if I'm inheriting assets, uh, you know, you always feel a little, yeah, I don't have enough. You feel nervous about the future.
Disenchantment.
Yeah, disenchantment, anxiety about the future because you may have assets but you don't have regular income.
Mm.
So it's I should start by saying it is difficult for both parties concerned, and a lot of the very ugly battles that happen in the West and in India are because of the financial split of assets. And as I said, there are laws, but laws can go both ways. I think it's very important for the one, it's very important to figure out how children are going to be raised and who's
Mm.
going to provide for them. And it depends on what age they are at, right? So, as a lot of people debate and discuss custody of children, but discussing who's going to provide for the children on an ongoing basis. Sometimes you have children's higher education bills that too.
Mm.
So in a divorce, if a young child is staying with the mother, how do you finally take care of higher education, which is not cheap,
Yeah.
is one of the things. um, it's important that you find a middle path,
Mm.
right? You want to make sure, especially in the case where one partner has been a homemaker, that the homemaker is taken care of and her expenses are provided for. And I think women have to ask for what they deserve, but you also don't want to be unfair to the other
Mm.
party. So it's very important to find a middle ground. I think in cases where both are income earners, this becomes slightly less complicated.
Mm.
But it's a topic that, and I always say it's a topic that should ideally be talked about with a professional at the table. Because
Correct.
sometimes a professional has, it could be a lawyer, it could be a financial advisor,
Mm.
they have the ability to step back from a very emotional situation because
Correct.
the couple is already knives out at each
Mm.
other in
Mm.
some way.
So you need somebody to be dispassionate about the whole
Yeah.
situation and
To
look
do
at
the
it.
math, to be
Yeah.
dispassionate,
Look
and,
at it rationally.
to look at it rationally. And it's important. And that person could be a family arbitrator, whoever you think is trustworthy.
Yeah.
I have found that seen a couple of cases, having someone in the middle sometimes is very helpful, and just doing that conversation unemotionally.
Hmm. So, we've discussed a lot of things, right? Joint account, separation, goals that you need to have with your spouse, sharing expenses. By the way, in your case, I mean, just uh, picking something from your own life, right?
Yeah.
When you decide expenses for the month,
Yeah.
how do you distribute it? Do you share equally? Do you say that, oh, I made more this year, so I take a
Nah, we just
larger
split.
burden?
No, we just split household expenses. I mean, it's really quite simple. Um, my husband is a documentation beast. So he literally makes balance sheets for both of us. So we know all the expenses. So at the end of the year, by the way, he'll tell me that इतना खर्चा घर में खाने के लिए हुआ, इतना पेट्रोल मेंटेनेंस हुआ,
So you make monthly budgets.
he does it. I am not taking any credit for it. He does it, and he'll just make records. So it's not budgets, but he makes records, and then it helps us think about next year. Because one of the things that we do, which comes out of this, is we both do very aggressive SIPs.
Hmm.
So we have this thing that whatever income that we have, we will take our post-tax salary, cut out expenses, and everything else will become SIP. That's
So how much is that? 80%, 90%
70 to 80% plus, sometimes 90, yeah,
in SIPs?
in SIPs. So
And these are largely passive.
no, it's a mix of
Mix
active,
of active.
passive. He does different ones, I do different ones, but it's our way to kind of, it's our investment discipline. So every year what we do is, after we've figured out our compensation for the next year, because we have appraisals and all, we tally out our expenses. So we know our income individually, we know our expenses that we are going to share as a household, we add some buffer, and then the balance is SIP, and then we divide that by 12 and say this is our SIP amount, and we reset our SIP. So for us, we do this budgeting exercise as a couple. Then we look at the assets. Like one year we had interiors for the home, so we said,
Correct.
okay, we have to keep this much aside in arbitrage funds for interior. So then we can plot the upcoming goals for the year, and everything else starts going into SIPs.
And is your SIP, is your investment style very conservative, or do you do some satellite investing where you take some amount of risks?
Actually, this is interesting, and I think it links so well to couples. Ours has evolved, right? And so I would urge couples to think about their investment style in the context of both professions. So in 2007 8, both of us were working on Wall Street, very high risk jobs, hedge fund jobs, etc. And you know, Sonia, with financial markets, right? When things are bad, they're damn bad. Your bonuses are bad, your NAVs are bad, your ESOPs are underwater, and you're so stressed. And we used to have very aggressive investments. And then we realized this cannot happen. We cannot have a situation where we are under so much career stress and have personal finance stress. So we dialed down and became very conservative. Now, when we were entrepreneurs, we didn't have too much money to invest because we were not taking salaries. But when we moved to Edelweiss, we started investing, but we became a little more conservative because like both people work in financial services. So it ended up being a lot of like balanced fund kind of stuff. Um, and we were also looking to build a home, saving up for that. So that happened. Now that home goals and all are done, we had this conversation and we said, can we be more aggressive? So we've moved up the portion of equity. So these are very targeted conversations that we've had as a
No,
family.
by aggressive, I mean, do you invest like, in startups? Do you do a lot of crypto? Do you do a lot of.
I ain't
That's
doing
what I meant by aggressive,
no,
not
no, no.
raising your equity component.
As aggressive as I will get, man. You know me well enough to know my views on crypto. So no, we don't do crypto. Prior to Shark Tank, I had not done any unlisted investments. Now I have some unlisted investments. I don't have any stock investments because of the complexity and the amount of rules.
So you don't invest even in like pre-IPO and no unlisted companies. Why?
Uh,
Is there a reason for that?
Uh, so unlisted, I haven't had time. As I said with Shark Tank, I have done unlisted now. Let's see how that involves. Listed equities is out of the question because it's just too complicated here. I rather own our funds.
Yeah.
So listed equities actually neither of us has have. Also the rules and tracking as an
Too much.
money management professional, it just this
Yeah.
too much to build, to spend time on that. So that we don't do. But yes, our money style, I know you think upping your equity exposure is not aggressive, but in my world it is aggressive.
No, I thought you would anyway have 90% equity
No,
exposure.
but I didn't. Till a few years ago, I was like 60-40
Really?
because we were building, we had home loans, we, you know, wanted to accumulate a corpus. We wanted, housing in Bombay is not cheap.
So you
And
bought one house.
We bought one house and
And you don't
I-
believe in having a second home or
No.
investing in property.
not at all. The first house is also a emotional purchase, not investment, and that we wanted to do. And while I don't have too many luxuries in life, a big house is one of them. So that took. So we were actually very conservative. And then I'm saying this because people have this myth that capital markets people are the most aggressive people in the world. You meet many people on our floor, you'll be surprised at how conservative they are.
No, I feel the other way. So all the capital market people I've interviewed in the last 10, 15 years are the most conservative investors I know.
Yeah,
They
Is
are
that
the
true?
most, they don't take any risks. Over time, I think they've realized that it doesn't matter. direct equities anyway nobody does
That nobody
because
does. That so nobody does.
because people don't have the time, they don't have the bandwidth, and they realize that over a period of time, in any case, even a simple index fund gives you 13-14%
Yeah, yeah.
compounded growth.
Some index fund will give you 13, 14. Mid cap will give you 18, 20. It's all okay.
Exactly.
The,
It all evens out
the other
over
thing is
decades.
capital markets is a very high risk career, right?
Yeah.
And so much of your compensation as you get older becomes ESOP type of compensation,
Correct.
which is market fluctuating.
Correct.
And I'm telling you, you never, people, like I have gone through some of the most testing times of my life in 2008. Just seeing that environment, that constant fear that you could lose your job any minute, these are hard things. At that point, na, you don't want your finances to be stressed. You just don't want it. I think that's why capital markets people are like that. In my house, we are two capital markets people.
Correct.
So, it's because it's one thing to have a stressful career, but personal finance, then the whole thing starts affecting the family very badly.
Correct.
Then
Yeah.
you'll just start seeing it's very tough on the family. And I don't want the family. And now we have a child. I don't want us to go through that.
Have you ever made any big financial mistake? Like
I've
something
made-
that you would regret?
I regret the overexposure to equities in 2007 and not having contingency funds. It sounds so silly, right? Just not having contingency funds. Because we had to come back to India in 2009 to set up Forefront, and we withdrew all the capital at like 60%,
Wow.
which like you should have just planned.
It's heartbreaking, yeah.
Yeah, you should, and then markets came back, so it was bad. Sometimes we let a certain part of the portfolio become disproportionately large, so that's something I like to keep an eye on. In general, I'm trying to not double down on one kind of risk, get too excited. Like, I have a startup portfolio now because of Shark Tank. I don't want it to go crazy as a proportion of my total assets. So
Correct.
I'm trying to find a balance because I have seen it go wrong for myself. I don't want it to go wrong again.
And between the two of you in the marriage, who takes the larger chunk of all the financial decisions?
the decisions
I would
are-
assume it's you.
No, it's wrong. See, all these myths get shattered. We take the decisions together, but to my husband's credit, he does a lot more of the execution
Okay.
on the decisions. So he's just far more detailed than I am. I'm actually not a very, when it comes to
So
my.
he's the money manager in the relationship.
No, he is the money. We are joint money managers. And I'm telling you, the document is damn useful. And if you look at our portfolios, they are different. So
I need to
he-
see that document. At least, the
Yeah,
formatting
yeah,
of that.
actually, you know what? I should put the document online. I mean, I don't think there's anything
Yeah.
suspicious
I
about.
don't think a lot of couples that I speak to don't even make monthly budgets.
Yeah,
They don't know how much they are spending every month.
I saw
Which
this.
I find very bizarre because the root cause of disappointment and disenchantment
Hmm.
in anything is not being aware of what is happening.
And most of the times, people think that when you're making a monthly budget, it is so that you can cut down expenses. I actually think a monthly budget as a couple gives you more freedom to spend, because
spend.
you know.
that you're not spending that much anyway.
Yeah. So, and it is not that difficult to make. सबके heads क्या होते हैं?
yeah,
This home expenses, property taxes, food. I mean, there's
correct.
5-10 major heads. You calculate what you've put in the last 12 months in each of those heads. You've got an annual budget.
Yeah.
You've got income, you've got expenses. It must be done. You'll end up spending more money. You'll feel less guilty about going on that vacation
Correct.
if you know you can afford it. I genuinely think people should make budgets. I'm actually, this conversation is motivating me to put our document online.
You should. I'm going to be the first one to look at it
It,
and use it.
it really helps. Yeah, I'm telling you, when things go wrong, when you have a document, you fight less.
Yeah. But do you guys fight over money?
No, not at all. Not at all. We fight over other things, but not money. We don't, because
You've never fought over money.
no, we've never fought over investments or ये गलत investment कर दिया तूने या ये नहीं किया, so we don't fight over that kind of thing. Now I can argue with him that, boss, you spend too much money on that shirt and it's really ugly. That fight we've had. And he can say you spend too much money on this, and
Nobody can win in those fights. For
yeah,
sure.
so usually the fights are about things like that, like why didn't you buy this on sale type, because of my issues. But We don't fight over large money. So far, we have not had to fight. Do you guys fight over money?
Not at all.
So there you go.
My husband is a big spendthrift, and
Ah.
I'm very frugal.
So you guys are the same.
So we are, yeah, the same dynamic that
Does
you
it
guys
drive
share.
you nuts?
No, I'm happy that he's the one to spend and I don't have to take the guilt of spending. So I'm the frugal one who doesn't spend and who doesn't have the guilt of spending.
I want to
But
try
for
and
all the
adopt
big
this.
expenses he spends, so I
Oh,
don't.
he spends on all the big expenses. Yeah, we share our big expenses. Okay, so he spends and you don't have the guilt. That's a nice one.
Yeah, that's.
So my stinginess means we don't have the guilt. Okay, I'm gonna try that. That's a
But
good.
see, the thing is that these dynamics also change, right, over
Yeah.
the years, depending on, I think, at least for us,
Yeah.
there was a period in COVID where I was making a lot more money than him.
Huh.
So at that point in time, I was
Yeah,
taking
that.
a
How
lot
is
of the.
that? That's a very tricky space. How
It
is it?
was a very tricky space because business, like, obviously I was a salaried employee and he had his
Yeah.
own business. So there was a time, 2-3 years, when his business was not doing that well.
Huh.
And then he still continued to be the spendthrift and I continued to be the frugal
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I was making more money. So, I mean, yeah, dynamics change. But I guess what happens at the end of the day, like you said, your money values need to be the same.
Yeah.
Like both of us have these middle class values where we, find it hard to spend on luxury items, but
Huh.
we love spending on travel.
Yeah.
Like we don't care about buying a fancy car, but we want to go on a fancy holiday. So all those things are the same.
So that gives you some anchoring, no?
That gives you some anchoring.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking for like a spouse or if you're looking for a partner, I think these values are the first thing
I
you
keep
need to-
telling girls this because a lot of girls come and ask me like, what kind of guy should I marry? And I tell them I have this conversation.
Yeah.
By the way, the other interesting one, I mean, I know a lot of couples where both are salaried and then one day one person wants to do a startup.
Yeah.
And then the dynamics change because the person who's doing a startup doesn't have the salaried income.
Yeah,
But eventually they could have a big exit.
correct.
But it's the person who was not doing the startup that supported the family. And how do you find harmony? Because it feels like I've never been through it. It feels like a place for a lot of potential discord.
Actually, Radhika, I feel that it also depends on the genesis of your relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like both of us, me and my husband, we found each other in college.
Same.
At that point, everyone was the same.
Yeah.
There was no incentive to marry for money or not for
Yeah.
money.
So money was not part of your power equation or your like marriage equation.
We didn't have money to begin with. Like
Same.
everyone was just kicking off.
Yeah.
So those dynamics were so. When you start off with those values where money is never in the picture,
Huh.
it continues to be that way over a period of time. But now I've seen a lot of the younger generation, they marry for money, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
for
yeah.
good reason or bad. I mean, everyone has
No
their
judgment,
own,
yeah.
no judgment. But I'm just saying that if it kicks off with like where you're both on the same, where like you start off at the same platform, then it
Yeah.
kind
So
of-
if money is part of the power dynamic, if there's such a thing exists in your relationship from the beginning,
yeah.
the evolution is like ours was very similar to yours. In college, everyone, and we too happened to be two of the poorest kids in class because we were the two kids on financial aid. And everybody else was like a fully funded student. So we automatically fell into this zone of like the cheap ones. And so we had that. In fact, so my husband proposed to me in college, and the first ring he got me, which when he proposed, had these like tiny fake diamonds. So I have no expectation also that he'll buy me fancy jewelry. Although he's bought me nice stuff. But I think
Good, low expectations means low disappointment.
yeah. So on our 10th anniversary, many years later, he had bought me jewelry, and so he went to one of the big branded stores, and he bought me something. And instead of being happy, I yelled at him. I was like, you could have bought this stuff from Chandni Chowk, and it would have been cheaper. But it was never a part of our like being wooed by expensive gifts and all. Was never a part of our dynamic. So
Yeah.
you're right. I think the starting point matters, but ideally money should not be used as a source of power in
It
relationship.
it shouldn't for sure. Because if you have a relationship or a marriage which is for like 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades,
Yeah.
your equation will change. At
Yeah.
some point, somebody's going to stop working. At some
Yeah.
point, someone's going to do better than the other. It's not
Yeah.
going to stay the same,
It's
right?
not going to stay the same.
So
I mean,
you have to have that anchor so that whatever the dynamics, even if one person goes bankrupt, the other person is there to watch their back.
yeah, I mean, it will have to. I mean, I've seen my parents have a 10-year age gap, and At some point, my father was the primary career. Now he's retired. My mother's working. He has his investments. So it's a different dynamic,
It's
but
a different
it's,
dynamic.
they've settled into it. And sometimes I think when the dynamic changes, you also have to have the conversation. So I tell a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, boss, before you jump into starting up, go have a conversation with your spouse, because your money dynamic at home is going to change. You are not going to earn an income. I don't know if your spouse is working or not, but if you believe that you're going to go for 2, 3 years without income and that is not going to change your family's lifestyle, you're smoking something, right?
Mm.
And so go have that conversation with your partner that I want to do with the startup. How is this going to change our life? Are we mentally prepared for this?
Correct.
It's not so romantic to just jump job ship and say, let's start up. Have that conversation before you
Yeah.
start up. So I tell a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs this. कि
That's
बात
a,
क्यों
that's a very interesting thing, actually. Nobody talks about that.
that
Yeah.
and let's, if we have to prepare for a lifestyle cut, let's discuss it and prepare it now, because
Hmm.
these things are also hard, right? I mean, I've gone from New York lifestyle to entrepreneur lifestyle in Bombay, and it is emotionally gut wrenching.
Taxing.
It's gut wrenching. So if you're going through that, talk about it. And that silent spouse is not even getting the joy of being a startup founder, and is just wondering why my lifestyle has been changed and is dealing with all your anxiety of a startup. Talk to the person about it.
Yeah, yeah. And have you guys discussed as a couple what your money goals are in future, like early retirement, perhaps, because this
Yeah, yeah.
fatigue that sets in, right, for
We
some
we
one
just
versus the other,
we just started having this conversation, and
and
it's interesting. It's all fluid, but we started having. So my husband started talking about what a fire number for him could be. Not retirement early, but like a fire number in life. I mean, at which point you don't retire, but you're like financially free.
yeah,
And he's like, what should a fire number for him be? What should a fire number for me be? So we've just started having those conversations. I find it crazy because I'm like, is there a point at which I'm not going to work? I mean, we're going to sit at home and drive each other nuts. But then he keeps telling me it's not about retiring early. It's just about a point where you don't have to make decisions based on money.
Mm.
So we've had those fire type conversations.
It's
We've-
interesting. There's something called recently I read about. It's called barista fire.
What's barista fire?
Yeah, I just heard about it. So it's basically where you are semi-retired.
Okay.
You're not doing a 9 to 5 drill,
Yeah.
but you are working at your own pace to meet your living expenses. So everything else is taken care of by your investments, but you're still doing the bare minimum work to keep yourself busy and engaged and make that living expenses. So
And what's the barista angle here?
I don't know. I don't know why it's
Like-
called that. There's coast fire also, which is very similar. So there are different kinds of fire, by the way. It's not just plain simple.
So fire is like a khakra that comes in Sichuan and Chile and
Yeah.
all of that.
It depends. I mean, it depends on what kind of because a lot of people want to retire from the like so it's sort of the daily 9 to 5
Grind.
job, the daily grind. But they also want to work, right? They want
Yeah, I mean, my
to have
father and
something-
father-in-law. I also think the definition of, I mean, as I see my father-in-law, the definition of retirement has changed. I don't think I don't think anyone wants to be dependent on anyone in
Yeah.
their retirement. In fact, in both their cases, I've seen they think retirement, like my father says, you have 4 innings in life. The fourth innings, which is the 75 plus, has to be your best innings. So he's like, I have spent a long time worrying whether I could buy a golf set because I had to educate kids. Now I'm done with that. I want to do things. He parties every 2 days with his friends. In his head, he's the busiest person. So I don't know, maybe this is the barista.
Does he have investments? Like
He has lots of investments and
Okay.
he has pension because he worked in government
Yeah.
and my mother works. So, and both his children are. So, incidentally, by the way, he has the highest risk appetite of everyone in the family.
wow.
He's like small cap and micro cap.
because he has nothing to lose, right?
Yeah,
I mean, now
he's-
he's just
And
like
he's
in the
enjoying,
twilight zone of his
yeah,
life. Yeah,
he's enjoying investing and he thinks he's the best investor in the family and he thinks he's the cool thing. And yeah, all his friends are like that. So he has these 80-year-old friends, they're playing golf, they're really enjoying their retirement. And I feel actually very happy. Same with my father-in-law. He's traveling everywhere. He's doing some consulting and talks. He's doing like your barista fire kind of thing. And I feel really happy to see both of them because they had it much harder. Yeah. And
So what is your fire number?
oh, what's my fire number?
since we're talking about
I
early
never
retirement.
calculated my fire number. My husband says it should be like 50 to 100 crores, and now someone's going to troll me for saying this, but that's what he says it should be, I guess.
Is that how much you want
Yeah, I
before you
mean,
retire?
yeah, I'm telling you, I really struggle with this because I struggle with the idea of not doing anything. I just struggle with the idea of not working, not building. It'll drive me nuts. So,
You won't know what to do with your time.
yeah, so I won't know what to do with my time. But I think some people say that, in a city like Mumbai, you probably need 50 to 100 crores to be fire. And
What?
I think Saurabh Mukherjee said this, and it became all this news. I don't know. And it also, see, I don't think there is one fire number because it depends on the lifestyle you want.
It depends on your living expenses, of course.
You
yeah.
can live in 10 crores also. You will live in what you have,
Yeah.
right? So there is no fire number, right? I mean, you will live in what
What should the ideal fire number be as per your, your income? I mean, what should it be? Should you have saved 3 times your income, 4 times, 30 times your
you
income?
should take your income post-retirement, whatever that is, and your expenses, and assume that inflation grows not at 5% but closer to 10% because there's also lifestyle inflation.
Hmm.
And then do your math.
Correct.
That actually should be your fire number. And most people are barista fire people. They don't sit quietly after retirement. And the good thing is, even with older people today, there are so many opportunities for them, right?
Yeah.
They can consult, they can be on boards, they can write, they can do lots of different things. But the good thing in India is, I think for a certain section of Indians, retirement has moved from a very scary thing to a very pleasant thing.
Very acceptable.
Yeah, I mean,
Accepted. I guess.
accepted.
Yeah.
No, like for a government officer's daughter, retirement, we used to say was scary. एक दिन पापा retire कर जाएंगे, सारी power चली जाएगी, you will not have the salary and the big houses, and they live a much better lifestyle now than they did pre-retirement.
Really?
So, and I think that is sensible saving. It is wise, good old middle class saving and just doing the check boxes and all of that. But I think it's moved to a much more pleasant thing. So I feel very happy when I see today's senior citizens vacationing, enjoying themselves. I do believe this is the generation that really slaved it.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, it was great chatting with you and so much to learn about money, relationships. If you had to leave us with one relationship advice with respect to money, what would it be?
Talk and trust. Talk. Don't hide. And trust. I think talk and trust generally.
Communication is key.
Communication and a certain amount of trust, because the future, a relationship, you don't have you don't know all the questions today. You don't know the turns life will take. So a certain amount of trust will have to be baked into it. You'll have to believe that the intent of the other person is good. And I think you have to know that you will go through rocky times also. Any relationship, any marriage, any life will go through a fair amount of rocky times. And I think that is where trust will get you through that.
Some amount of leap of faith.
Some
has to be
major
taken.
leap of faith. And my word learning for the day is barista fire.
Yeah.
I have learned barista fire. My objective for life is, and I like coffee, so barista fire.
I still don't know why the word barista is added in there.
I'm gonna go Google
But,
barista fire.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna
Hopefully all of us will be barista fire someday.
Now I'm gonna go work on my barista fire number. I feel very young saying barista fire. I feel very cool about myself.
Okay, on that note, guys, thanks a lot for watching.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Edelweiss Mutual Fund, and click on the bell icon for notifications. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.